Welcome to CS Week Success Stories, second Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern webinar series. These webinars are the top-rated workshops from our attendees for Conference 38 held last May in San Antonio, Texas. I am John Sild, and I'm with CS Week, and I'll be your moderator today. CS Week in Conference 39 will be held from April 28th through May 1st, 2015, at the Charlotte Convention Center, Charlotte, North Carolina. Please note, our call for presentations are now open for submissions. This program will be recorded and available for playback, as are our other archive presentations found under the Educational Venue Second Tuesday link on our website. Today's program is Meter to Cash, Improving Customer Experience and the Bottom Line, presented by Penny Tootle. Penny Tootle is the Customer Care and Field Service Manager with Las Vegas Valley Water District with more than 20 years of experience. A Bachelor of Arts in Business Administration, Penny focuses on strategically leveraging technology and business processes for the optimal service results. This is Penny's 5th year to speak at the conference, and she is highly rated in the top 10 every year by our attendees. We are truly blessed to have Penny on the call with us today and sharing her story with us. Penny, take it away.
Thank you. Well, let's get in and get started. I want to make sure that I have plenty of time for any questions that you may have. I'm going to cover quite a bit of information about our experience. And meter to cash is a terminology that's being used in the utility industry quite a bit lately, and I want to talk specifically about what it meant in our experience and how dramatically it has changed our business. And it really does get back to how do you improve that bottom line, and how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time, and you've got a big business that you've got to make improvements in. When you start talking meter to cash, you are talking about every aspect of the organization. And so let me first introduce you to the Las Vegas Valley Water District, which is the water purveyor that I work for. And it is the largest water purveyor in southern Nevada. We have 350,000 accounts, 1 million customers. But my call center, the call center that I manage, also supports 2 other businesses, and that is the Southern Nevada Water Authority, which is Southern Nevada's regional water resource management agency. So there are 7 members in this group, and we service about 2 million customers. And that is, from a conservation perspective, we will support initiatives across the entire Southern Nevada Valley. The Las Vegas Springs Preserve, just like anything else in Las Vegas, there has to be an entertainment element, and that is a 180-acre facility that we support in our call center as well as in our back office from a utility perspective. We do have guests that come in. We do a number of things throughout the year. Summertime is a very high visitation season. We have about 3,000 guests annually, and it ranges from everything from community events on Brews and Blues and Dia de los Muertos, and currently in the summertime we have summer camps running in various different areas. It is the birthplace of Las Vegas, where the first water was used, found, and where our utility originates. And so with that, I also want to share from a operational perspective, our call center, as a result of some of the initiatives around meter to cash, we generally would process about 40 to 48,000 calls every week. Well, right now, every month, pardon me. Right now, that number is down dramatically, and I'm going to speak to that a little bit later, because now we're lucky if we get to 38,000 calls in a month. And that means that there have been a lot of adjustments to the way that we handle our business that has reduced the inbound call volume. And what it has done is it has moved it to different areas of the business where we can be a little more efficient in the way that we respond to the customer needs, and also more thorough as an organization and save on that bottom line. So let's talk a little bit about some of the challenges that we face as an organization. And I like to call it our 15 minutes of fame, not the kind of fame that any utility is looking to achieve. But it actually occurred during Thanksgiving holiday, which is my favorite time to take off every year. That is my holiday. I take a week, and it takes about 7 days for me to prepare the Thanksgiving feast. On average, we run about 30, 35 guests in my home at Thanksgiving. And the reason is I love it. I love Thanksgiving. I make sure that anybody that doesn't have family in Las Vegas, they have a place that they can always come and enjoy a meal. And I was just getting ready to begin. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and that's when I start doing all my baked goods and pies, and I'm getting ready to prepare things, and I get a phone call that all of a sudden the Las Vegas Valley Water District is frontline news because our meters don't work. It's the one message you don't want to hear. And as I got the information, it was my turn in the rotation to take all of the escalation calls during that month, and usually we hand it off if we take a little time off, and the person that was filling in for me wanted to inform me that when I come back from vacation, I'm going to be dealing with the media fallout of meters failing. Well, we had already started to work on plans to address some of the failures with the automatic meter reading devices that were attached to our meters at that time, but it was too little too late because now we had these media impacts, and the first thing that sign of relief was that the media actually told the community that if the Las Vegas Valley Water District is not responding to your issue soon enough, call us. We'll investigate for you. Well, the news got their first taste of what it's like to be a call center. So obviously it helped us for a moment. We had a little relief because the call volume went down with us, and it went through the roof with the media, and of course they weren't able to manage those calls as quickly as the customers expected, and of course that dissatisfaction turned on the media. But it gave us an opportunity to sit back and look at the business and say we've got to make some serious corrections. We've got to look at what was really causing the problem. And the problem was our bill corrections. We had a high volume of estimated bills going out of the door without real examination of what was causing those bills to be estimated and then be corrected to show this true consumption. It was because those devices were failing. And what was the outcome? The outcome was our customers stopped trusting us. And we were one of the highly trusted utilities at that time, one of the most community-friendly utilities. We still had that mom-and-pop feel, even though we had grown to quite a big capacity. But technology is not always the silver bullet that solves all your problems. If it is not fully investigated when it's implemented, then we're going to run into problems as it begins to fail and as the technology around it begins to morph. And so we did an analysis of how those devices were failing. We looked at the battery life. We looked at some of the manual processes that were causing us to go out and read them. And we asked ourselves, are we able to go backward to a manual reading organization? And the answer was a resounding absolutely not. We've already adjusted our staffing to accommodate this new technology and to go back to the community and say, hey, this is going to affect us financially, which means it's going to affect you. We're not going to go backward. We're going to move forward, and we need to do that in a very innovative way. And so what we pulled together was a meter-to-cash project team. And what we said was, from the point that that meter goes in the ground and begins to be serviced to the point that we receive the funds from what revenue we anticipate for water that's used, we need representation in this team. Because if you look at the way that our entire infrastructure around the automated meter reading device, that project was launched, it was done in a silo with one group. What we learned is there were a lot of factors that had to do with how the customer interacts with that technology that was not considered. And one of them was, what is the life of that battery, the maintenance requirements, and the build process that's going to follow when we have to make those adjustments. So pulling this team together required that we look at the entire continuum of the meter-to-cash experience and get representation onto this team. And the outcome was we had a customer experience group of stakeholders. We said that we needed to make sure that we not only replace these failing devices, we had to get a vendor, replace those devices, but deal with the existing infrastructure policy and our operation to make sure that we could win back the trust and confidence of our customers that we can provide the service they need continuously as their water purveyor. And so we were looking at a timeline. We wanted to give ourselves 3 months to select the vendor, 6 months to validate all. We made a commitment. We told the community in response to that, we are going to make sure that we read every single one of these single-family residential meters within a 6-month window of time. And within 8 months, we will finish phase 1 and make sure that we have connected with every customer that's impacted by a failing meter. And within 24 months, we want to make sure that we get this inventory completely replaced. And so we knew we were dealing with a moving target because, yes, we have some that are failing because we're dealing with an anniversary period of when this project kicked off, but we know that everything that's in the ground at some point is going to have to be replaced with the new product that was selected. So our resources on the meter-to-cash representation came from our field services group, our billing services team, our customer care group, our IT department. We had people in operations. We had everyone involved in what this solution was going to be. One of the things that we did that was different, was unique to our organization, is Las Vegas, as you know, is dealing with some economic crisis. We do still lead the nation in unemployment. And one of the areas that is hardest hit is the construction division. And when you start looking at we are a highly organized community. We went to the local 525 and we looked for a way to infuse the community with a desire to help us bring this organization back to its former glory of being that trusted community resource. We are a part of this community. We all have a vested interest in the success of this organization. And so going to them and saying, can we contract with some of the plumbers and pipe fitters that are struggling in this time, was one of the first things that we did that began to turn the tide in our favor. And so they became a temporary source for us at minimal cost. They already had their benefits through their local union, and so all we really needed to do was augment our field services group to get the reading done, the manual reading that we needed done to validate what the actual bills should be going forward. And we did some things around our process to improve that as well. We did use our existing staff to train them, and then we brought one person in to lead them to make sure that we had consistency in the work that was being done and we could rely on those results. But it was a very revolutionary report and approach in our respect, because we were drawing in from that community and using them to help us achieve what we wanted to achieve in this meter-to-cash approach. There were three things that we looked at. We wanted a meter-to-cash philosophy, so we needed to make sure that philosophy penetrated every area of these different work groups of the business. So we needed to go back to the business process, the front line, and educate the team. We needed to address the demands of the customer by viewing our organization from that customer's perspective. That means that we needed a strategy that dealt with everything along that continuum, and then that would have to be the thing we rely on for success. So we were going to approach this issue as one organization with one purpose, one outcome. We wanted to make sure that we provided a continuum of service. And so it goes back to, there was a real driving influence from the customer care side of the business, because we always felt that every contact you have with a customer is an opportunity. And we always use that acronym of ECHO, because what you do with that customer will echo and continue throughout the life of their existence with us, but it will also echo within the organization. When you treat a customer well, that reward will be realized every time that customer interacts with us again. So if you treat them well on the phone and they meet up with someone in the field, then they're going to respond according to the treatment that they received. And so the idea of fully evaluating someone's account and giving them a complete response that prepared them for what was going to come made it possible for us to bridge that gap of communication between the office, the back office, and that field service group. We also had to bring that knowledge to the back office and the billing area. Even though you don't see that customer, if you send out 95% of your bills with complete accuracy, there's 5% that there's a customer interaction that's going to take place as a result of work that you've done. You want to make sure that that interaction is not without a valid explanation, a clear, visible trail of what needed to take place in the field and what needs to be communicated by phone. And so it became our philosophy that we do a full analysis every time we touch an account. The strategy to replace the AMR devices and address the business improvements that were needed along the way was essential. first I want to introduce to you that we do use Oracle CCMB systems. So anybody that uses CCMB, you'll understand a lot of what I'm talking about. I'll try to stay away from acronyms, but one of the things that it uses is a system of to-dos, things that little work items that create lists that we can work from. And we wanted to stay as much within the system as possible, because what we were saying is this is not just a project. We're going to change the way we operate as a business. And so we used that system to capture those manual reads that were taken from that work group. And by capturing that information, we could then identify how far off were our readings. The majority, we were glad to see, were still on track. So the failures, it just happened to be that they all came about the same time during the holidays. Emotions are high. There's a lot going on, and everybody knows how it is when family comes in from out of town. One small issue then becomes a major issue, and you get enough of those, and the media thinks that it's a parade. But we were very thankful that at that time we needed something that would push us forward, and that was just what we needed to push us forward, and it allowed us to go back and examine our processes. We needed to make sure that we accounted for how we were recording data when we started and stopped services. We have a tiered rate structure. We needed to make sure that were we distributing the water appropriately because of the time period between the reads. There was a lot that was being influenced by how the read information was being captured. We needed to allow a little bit more empowerment at the front line. So you've got these associates who are talking to these customers, but there's no empowerment to make decisions based on the obvious information in front of them. And so when you look at that meter-to-cash philosophy, now you're saying, I'm putting the responsibility on you to evaluate what happened at the point that the meter went in the ground to the point that this customer is faced with a bill that they must pay. I want you to make the best decision, not just make the decision that's in the rule, but make the best decision for this scenario, and keeping in mind what is our overall goal as an organization. So what did it require? Education. And that's a big deal for us. One of the things that came out of all of this discussion was as you put these teams together that cross these different work functions, you're looking at an educational experience that's happening at a leadership level that needs to trickle down to the front line. And educating each team member on the importance of their role in the meter-to-cash process was key, because it allowed us to do a better job of educating our customers. The result of the meter-to-cash process had a number of effects, but the number one thing was we became a proactive communicating unit. As an organization, we now make it our practice to proactively talk to our customers when something is going to affect them. We proactively contact customers when we recognize that a correction on a bill is going to have an impact. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that, because I spoke about what our call volumes are. But one of the things that we did was we really expanded our outbound calls. And what we're doing now is we're saying that if I can reduce the calls that are coming in by making calls going out, I'm going to save a lot more time, because I'm not going to have recontact. And a lot of call volume in every call center is measured. Of course, there's first call resolution. We're always looking to resolve things the first time around. But a big part of the analytics behind a call center is your recontact rate. How many times are customers having to call back? Some of that is built into your processes. Some of that comes from we require that they go out and validate information and call us back, or we require that the right person call us. But it's still 2 calls for the same scenario. What we did was we examined the business process, and we said we need to be more proactive in educating them. We need to be more proactive in our notification. But we need to be the person that's following up. What does that do with our customer satisfaction levels? They increase. They improve. When we're replacing the device, we know the impact that that's going to have. Why not educate them in advance? And so out of this process, we developed a few things. We did develop door hangers that educated customers about the change-out process and what to expect. And then, of course, our commitment that we're going to manually read these meters on a regular basis. When I talk about the formula for success, one of the things I want to bring to the forefront is this department, customer care and field services. You'll notice that is one unit. What ended up happening as a result of the cross-pollination of information, ideas, strategies, when that team came together, it was agreed upon that we needed one department. We were operating independently. We had our field services unit, and that was responsible for taking meter reads and doing all of the adjustments that were associated with turning on and shutting off water. That group was a field group. It was field-driven, and everything about it was focused on what do we need to do in the field. It's our world once it becomes a field unit, but we don't have to worry about anything else. We had our back office billing department that was responsible for all of the editing that was necessary. And so any bill correction that needed to take place was taking place in that group. And if you have the typical utility setup, what you'll notice is your edit department will constantly question what the field department is turning in as read data. And so a lot of rework takes place between those two units. I want you to reread this. I want you to recheck this. But it's based on no additional information other than this read looks higher than the last one. And so that communication going back and forth creates its own level of tension because of the amount of work that now this field team is having to manage from not only the demands of the customer, but now the internal demands from the bill edit department. And then you've got customer service, who's dealing with the customer and trying to serve the customer, give the customer as much satisfaction information as they can, but they're also generating more work. They're generating the new starts and the new stops, and without respect of how much it's going to take from those field resources. Well, when you bring all those teams together under one leader and you give one directive, the directive is that we manage the meter-to-cash process with optimum efficiency, and customer satisfaction is our driving goal. Now we've got to communicate, and we've got to communicate about how each area is affected. And one of the things that happened was we actually moved a function of the back office to the field group. That function is the first high-low exception for meter reads. If you are talking to someone who's actually read the meter, who knows that route, and you are looking at a reading that made an exception, you can ask them right then and there. You can send that work right then and there. You know the problems that happen on the routing side, and so we call that now our rapid response team. And out of that, it also developed a feedback. And the feedback was, hey, I'm out here in the field. You've got me going to this meter number, but that's not the meter number in the ground. Let's not wait till next month to fix it when the bill error comes in. Let me send you the data now. You can fix it. And all of that information comes into the bill system. And the bill back audit team now is responsible for the more complex bill issues, the more complex problems. And so you take about 9, and I'm going to give you some numbers. We had, on average, we were running a backlog of about 3,500 items every single day. Now we basically will get between the two units 1,100 items a day. Why? We've eliminated the redundancy. We've eliminated the pushback, the tug of war. All of that's gone. We are only dealing with work that actually requires attention. And on the back office side, we've expanded their duties to include starting and stopping services that come through our non-traditional venues, which are now becoming our traditional ones. And that is our web self-service forms and our faxes. And so that formula deals with how this department was formed, but also how we went in and structurally reorganized the business processes that drive that communication with the customer in every single area of the business. We opened up the business so that people learned more about how the different functions work and what everyone's responsibilities are. And we did an honest assessment of what that backlog was comprised of. Where were we falling short? What was technology-driven as a problem, and what was process-driven as a problem? What was hierarchical? What did we need to do to level the communication string? It didn't mean that we had to eliminate hierarchy, but it meant that we had to take away all the permission that was causing the delay in the response that was necessary. Immediate and long-term solutions was a big part of the formula. We were so driven by, I need to just get these bills out the door so that I've got 350,000 customers billed this month. Well, that's an immediate solution. But in the long run, how many times will I correct that bill before this customer problem is solved? And what does that do to satisfaction? And so we needed to make sure that transparency was a theme. Opening up the back office, opening up the communication, opening up the procedures. What do we do in customer service? What are we telling our customers? And getting that in sync with what are we telling them in the field. If a customer pulls a technician over to the side, does the technician know what we're going to say when that customer calls? And if they do, how comfortable are they with sharing that information or responding to the questions that are being asked? So those are some of the things that we wanted to see in our immediate solutions, but also our long-term solutions. And the other thing was we relied on our front line. We needed to find the solutions that we knew would work because we were talking to the people that were dealing with the problems. And I know if anybody that's listening to this webinar is in leadership, you've made decisions in a conference room that really sounded excellent. They looked good on the flow chart. They came out nice in the instructions, but when you put them into practice, they blew up or fell apart. We wanted to stop that because what we found was we were making a lot of decisions in the conference room that did not translate when a customer was engaged with us. And so what we did was we put together focus groups, and we created a process around improving our resources, our online resources, where they go for their answers and solutions, that was based on an evaluation by a team of frontline associates across a number of different areas. We opened up the discussion among the leads across all of the different functional groups. So we've got our leads in the field having conversations with our leads on the phone to make sure that we're giving a consistent message to the customer. And yes, it did change the business. It was a difficult mindset change, but once the mindset change was achieved, we found that they pretty much drove the success of the change. And so those roles being expanded, it was an excellent process. It was great for all of us, but it meant that we needed to be diligent not to stop because we felt like we've got a new product. We needed to keep digging. Our escalations were increasing, and we needed to find out why. And so we needed to go in and ask, what were you finding from a quality perspective? It would have been easy to just point every issue to the failing devices and throw all of our efforts into that one silver bullet, changing out the meters is going to solve the problem. But that was not the answer for our future. That was an immediate response to what we were dealing with the impression of the community. But when we conducted that assessment of our business, we were able to find the root cause of some of those key concerns that gave us a lot of opportunity. There were many chances and opportunities that were opened up to us to improve our business. One example was when the bill exception processing falls behind, we would end up with a great deal of field-related work that was not updated in our customer relationship system. That CCMB system was not being updated because our work fell behind. And what happens? It stands to reason that that data not being updated is going to impact our billing, and our billing is going to fall behind, and more exceptions are going to be created. Why? It's in the logic of the system. The system assumes you've made mistakes, and so it's going to create even more work. And so you create this perpetual vortex of work that's keeping you behind. And that's what we wanted to solve when we started looking at some of the root causes of what was basically creating this customer dissatisfaction. It wasn't just the devices. The devices were only a part of the problem. One of the things that we found was a significant increase in our estimated bills as a result of being behind. I'm glad to report at the end of this, I'll show you some of the outcomes of some of these changes, but we have definitely solved that problem. But estimated billing is a problem when you are estimated month after month after month, and when we finally get the read, we're back billing you for an increased amount of water, but we're doing it at a season when you really can't afford any more utility costs. So that was another factor that we were looking into, is how are we affecting customers, and when were we affecting the customers. So it was important that we take a look at all of the business processes for root causes. And the other part was that we didn't come back with excuses, and that was a hard instinct to fight against. It wasn't just that we had no fingers to point because we're now all one team. Nobody wanted to bring up what went wrong in the past because we've all had things that we fell short in. So now as one team, we needed to say, even though we've got this root cause, there are no excuses. We just need to get a solution. So the proactive customer contact, yes, we're saying we're going to set aside time so that you can make those phone calls. And yes, I know that's contrary to what we said before, all hands on deck, get all the calls coming in. We're saying some calls coming in are going to have to wait in order for us to turn this around. And so that was one of the initiatives. Reconfiguring our customer relationship system so that we take the safety net out. The work that we were double checking just to make sure was a safety net, and it's a mindset from an old system. We're saying we know the system now, we trust the system now, we understand it. If something goes wrong, we have enough knowledge within our work group to recover. But let's take some of that programming out that's creating more work that we don't need to do. Our technicians started sharing the information. They started talking to us more about what they were seeing. And we started using the intelligence that was coming back from the reads to address some of the meter problems that were happening before we got to the next bill cycle. So that communication has improved dramatically across the board. The meter-to-cash philosophy and formula is now a part of their day-to-day business structure and their communication process. And here's some of the things that I wanted to highlight, because when you start talking about how that media issue brought some things to light and we started to dig in, these are the hard numbers. If you go from a department, I know that for an entire year in 2012 we had mandatory overtime every single weekend for the billing department. You have a group of people who are coming in every day knowing that they're never caught up. That's how behind the work was. And we went from 1,152 hours of overtime dedicated at the end of the year to absolutely none since the beginning of 2012. January 2012, we did not record any overtime. The edict at that time was, I'm not going to do any overtime. We're going to change the way we approach the business. We're going to work through it until we get it done. And we had the queues cleared out in a 3-week window without any overtime, and we have not gone back since. And that is a business process change. It has to do with the to-dos, and anybody that's on CCMD, I'd love to share that with you, because that was a big piece of it, and that safety net was another big component of it. But the main thing was understanding how work ages and approaching it from a meter-to-cash philosophy and not chasing down work within queues because one seems more important than the other. It is a mindset change. But if you look at 1,500 to 3,500 estimated bills going out of the door to less than 35 daily, we actually are now running about 20 or less a day. Yesterday we only had 7 estimated bills. I look at a report every single day just to keep my finger on the pulse. If I see that spike, I know exactly what happens. And so you're looking at the result of not being behind, but you're also looking at the result of that continuum applying at the time that every call comes in, evaluating the accounts fully. We had 508 escalations in 2012. We had 158 by the end of 2013. Our goal this year is to have less than 100 escalations, and we look like we're well on the way. And where's that coming from? Proactive notification and education. When we know we're going to make an effect, have an effect on a bill because we've made a correction, because we've changed out a meter, we're calling the customer to estimate. It doesn't mean that we're going to forgive debt. It just means that if the customer is aware and we walk them through, these are the impacts of this change, and here's how we can help you. We are seeing that that's not escalating beyond that front line, and so we want to continue with that pattern and method of business. It's a much more efficient way of handling things. Our read compliance is at 100% every month this year. Obviously, we've made a lot of progress with changing out those meters. We actually transitioned that the local state 525, that local group that was doing our reads for us, we were able to get some contract funds, some bond money to begin the replacement. Once we got a vendor, procured new product, now we've got them doing the implementation. So we still aren't pulling from our daily operation in order to get the implementation of these devices, these new devices in the ground. They've done a tremendous job. We've got the worst areas resolved where the greatest failures were occurring, and now look at what it's doing to our read compliance. We are at 100% of our meters being read every single month, nothing behind, all of that contributing to these outcomes. Our outbound dialer reduced our truck rolls to a cost avoidance of $4.8 million. It was enough for senior management to know that we were going to have savings, but to be able to put dollars to it. We are trending at a 2% improvement so far in 2014, so more great news. By calling the customers and continuing that idea of reaching out to them and giving them the opportunity to make their payment if they're falling behind, if we know that there's something coming up, giving them opportunity to make a payment arrangement or extension is preventing us from rolling a truck to shut them off and rolling a truck to turn them back on when we receive payment. And look at the savings there. 89,000 new AMR devices as of March 2014. We were at 24%. We're a little bit over 33% now in the month of June. So I know that that's the last report that I saw. So it probably would have been for May because we didn't have June done before I knew I was doing this webinar. But just a lot of great progress along the lines of the initial meter-to-cash functionality. Meter to Cash is about celebrating and serving the community from a wealth of knowledge and skills that each customer care and field service team member brings to the table. If anyone were to ask, is it one thing? No, it's not one thing. It's not one process. It's not one function. But what it is making sure that we're utilizing all of our skills. And when you've got a department, within the customer care department, there's 120 people. In the field service, you've got 65 people. All of those people bring a certain strength to this organization. And by communicating with them and telling them, look, this is the position we're all in. How do we get out of it? What do we need to do? It's amazing how well this group came together and came up with solutions that have really driven our entire organization in the right direction and propelled us moving forward with some of these initiatives that we want to continue with and the service that we want to provide. We want to be able to show our customers that we may not have to compete, but our service levels tell you that we are willing to. So that's really all that I wanted to share with you about Meter to Cash. I see that I have a question. How do we use the outbound dialer to reduce our truck rolls? Basically what we do, and the outbound dialer is literally it is a recorded message that calls out to all of our customers that are delinquent. We have about 3,000 customers that come up delinquent every week. Those customers that are delinquent will get a phone call 2 weeks before we would normally be scheduled. Their bill tells them that we're scheduled to shut them off 2 weeks before. We give them a phone call. We let them know it's a very important message from the Las Vegas Valley Water District. They can press 1, and when they receive that message, they are given their balance, told that their service is scheduled to be disconnected, and they can make their payment right then and there. We track that. We want to know how many customers are paying right then. And then we call them again. When their service is scheduled to be disconnected the day before, they're going to get another call from us. They're actually going to get a call in between that 2-week window and the day before. We call them 3 times if they haven't paid. And up until the day before, they're going to be disconnected. And then from there, we also track to see if a payment has come within 48 hours of that phone call, because customers may not be prepared to pay the bill right then, but if they pay within 48 hours, we attribute it to that call. And for every one of those phone calls, if we did not have to shut them off, then that's one truck roll that we did not have to have. And if we did not have to turn right back around to turn them back on, that's another truck roll. And so we add those up, and we calculate and we report on that, because we want our senior management to know that this is an effective tool. We have expanded it, and we want to use it for other areas. Return checks is another area, and payment arrangements that are due to break. Those are some of the things that we use it for. I have a question here. Do you notify customers or communicate with them when you are manually reading meters every 18 months? Can you expand a little bit on how this is coordinated? What we do right now is every month when we go out and do our regular reading, those are our automated meter reading devices. We are an AMR. We are setting the foundation for AMI. So for those of you who have the automated meter reading devices and automatic meter intelligence, however you want to call it, there are devices that can transmit the reads. Houston has a great system. I recommend you go and visit them. It is wonderful. They transmit everything, and they really have minimal staff doing just maintenance, 2 to 3 people doing maintenance for the entire city. But with us, what we're doing is we're beginning by laying the foundation. But we still have to drive by and get reads. But that's it. It's just a drive-by. And we get the reads, and right now we're running 2 systems. Our old system that was failing, and that was the Datamatic units, and the new system that we've purchased, the replacement is iTron. And so we drive by, we get those reads. Well, we only use approximately 15 people, and that includes for maintenance and calibrations and change-outs. All of that is happening within that group to make sure that we get those reads. Well, in order to confirm, to make sure that we meet that commitment for our customers, the 18 months means that somebody has to get out, foot to ground, and get manual reads. And so just as we go through those routes with our trucks, we dedicate a resource to manually read meters. And the way that we do it every 18 months is we basically put them on a schedule. So somebody does a manual route every single day to make sure that by the end of 18 months, we've covered our entire valley. So it's just a way of organizing so that you have a person dedicated to getting those manual reads. How do we coordinate it within the system? Within our customer care and billing system, that manual read does not come in as a billable read. That manual read is there as a resource if we need to confirm any billing correction or anything like that, but it goes into a different location. Our main meter read file uploads from our AMR devices, but that read is stored on the The way the system is designed, it is a characteristic on the meter that shows that there is another read out there, and our team does know how to interrogate and investigate that information and tie it into any person or any dialogue that they're having with the customer. How far back can you go into cancel rebill where a customer has to pay? Our service rules allow us to go back 36 months, and one of the issues that caused us to have our 15 minutes of fame was that we were doing that. And here's the problem. If I go back 36 months, what do you think the customer is going to say? I'm billing you for 36 months. Our device was failing. It didn't transmit a good read, and we didn't notice it. The customer saying, that's your fault, not mine. Why am I paying you a service charge if you don't have to manage your business? That was the argument time and time again. We had an arbitrary rule that said this is what you can do. The customer used the water. You can verify it. You can validate it. Here's the meter. It shows the physical read. That storyline didn't bode well for us, and that's why we went in and investigated. Our rule now is that we don't go back more than 12 months, because what we've said is if we improve these business processes, that should never happen. And so if we see something that failed, then something went wrong in our processes. So while the rule says we can go back 36 months, since 2012, we've not gone back more than 12 months for any residential service. Now, when you're dealing with a commercial service, we have a different approach. And the reason is because a commercial service has somebody monitoring it. It is their job to monitor consumption. If something goes wrong, it's usually because of one read, if it's a combination service, or if it's a turbine service and we've done some meter maintenance on it. There's a lot of coordination that has to go into it, especially when there's access issues. So those kinds of things can prolong the ability to get a good read, and so we may back bill them for more than 12 months because that coordination effort wasn't there. So there are some things that we do on the commercial side that are a little different than the residential, but our cancel rebills, we limit them to 12 months or less. And we are moving forward with changing our service rules so that we can make sure that we don't exceed that period that we've made a commitment that if we manually read it every 18 months, there's absolutely no reason to back bill it because we know we've got a physical read on that meter every single 18 months. Our goal is to make sure to get less than that, of course, but 18 months is what we've done, what we've said. I hope that answers that question. Any other questions for me?
It looked like it does. Penny, what a great presentation. I do have a couple questions that I want to follow up with that I'd like to throw your way. The first question that I have for you, what team handles the back office work related to your upgrade, and how was it incorporated with the daily operations? And then a follow-up, did you adjust performance matrix?
Okay. That's a good question. When we did the project, you'll notice that I talked about how we brought in an outside group to do the field work, but we did not bring in an outside group for the back office. We felt that there was too much training involved in order to effectively minimize the impact to the customers. And so that was the whole point of this project in the first place, is to deal with the impact that our business practices were having, and our technology as well, on our customer base. So what we did was we had a select group of individuals that we pulled from our daily operation. We used 4 people. One person as a senior, because we needed a go-to for that team, and 3 individuals. And their sole purpose was to validate every single one of those manual reads coming in, proactively notify any customer where we noticed a discrepancy between the automated meter reading device and the manual reading that was being obtained from that field group. And if we felt that was trending towards a problem on the property, educate the customer on how to address those problems. And as well, forgive the back debt. We weren't going to bill them, and so we did change the business process. And so if we're going out and validating and know that we've got a problem with our devices, we are now going to change our business process and forgive that back debt as a part of this project. And so every single one, 100% of those accounts, we looked at, we evaluated, and we made sure the customer did not pay for our negligence to maintain the system. And from that point forward, we educated those customers. We ensured that the next meter went in, when that meter got changed out and a new device went in, we tracked it. And we made sure that if that customer was still having a problem, we were following up with that customer and helping them get to the bottom of what was causing their bills to increase. Because here's the issue. When we dealt with those change-outs and we dealt with some of those media issues that resulted, what customers were saying was not that they didn't want to be responsible. That was one of the problems. But they were also saying it's unfair because these problems on my property I would have addressed if I had known about them. And that's a fair statement. if we had read it correctly, they could have addressed the problems that are now causing them these high bills going forward. And so we certainly didn't want to maintain that same mindset that we are unaffected by how this problem is costing our customers. And so that group came from our daily operation. Did it affect the metrics? Yes, it affected our metrics to a certain extent. Because we did that adjustment of the team and created the customer care and field services team, moved that rapid response unit, we were able to afford pulling those resources from the daily operation. And we created metrics for that work group around the project, because the majority of that review period for all of those individuals would be based on the work they did on that project. And so, yes, we adjusted their metrics, their success metrics, and we identified within the team's metrics any impacts that removing those people from the group would have had on our ability to respond to customer volumes, both internal and external.
Very good. Can you tell me what marked the end of the phase for the meter installation?
What marked the end of it was once we read 100% of the single-family residential meters, we said we were done with phase one. And so that's why we were saying we had 6 months to do the procurement and make sure that we had those meters read. And then the 6-month period of reading those meters, 8 months gave them the extra 2 months that they needed to do the continued validation. So in tandem with the people that were reading the meters manually, you had that group validating them as they came up every day and following up. And so you had this tickler occurring where I'm looking at it every day, and then I've got this follow-up action that's needed once that meter gets changed out. I've got this outreach that's needed. And so the end of that phase of the work that was being done was marked by the timeline of those reads being captured and the follow-up work that was necessary. Once we reached that, we knew that we had addressed all of the problem accounts. Every customer that was being negatively impacted immediately because of failing AMR devices and estimated bills that resulted in bill corrections that would have normally come through our business process, that marked the end of it. From then, it just became a meter maintenance improvement. And so that group disbanded, went back to their daily operation, but their business processes went with them. So those business processes that were established made good sense. And so we went back to the regular operation and said, okay, this worked. Now let's incorporate that as a business. And so as a result, right now, if we get a bill correction and we show that consumption has tripled and we show a pattern of decrease, meaning the device, because some of those devices are still out there and we know that the failure is not going to stop, but we've taken care of those that have been failing all this time, how do you approach it going forward until you have 100% replaced inventory? And so that business process now requires that you refer that over to our escalation team so that outreach call takes place, that education takes place, that debt is examined, that consumption is examined, and we bill the customer what is right.
Very good.
What metrics did I set for my billing team? The metrics that are set currently are based on the volume of work, obviously, that they're doing. It's unique to that group. So there's a couple of things that we do. Every call center has to have some kind of metric about being available to the customer. And the mindset in billing was that there was no customer. Now they understand availability is built into the entire business. If you're not available to get that bill out the door, then it's one more bill that waits, and then we're behind again, and now you've got an estimated bill. So the adherence and conformance metrics are being utilized by our billing team. They actually do sign into their phones. We sign in and we use IEX and NICE are the two reporting tools that we use. Avaya and Interaction Center are the soft phone technology that are used to track adherence and conformance. So our billing team does have that metric. That metric exists across the board. Everyone in the call center is held accountable for being available to the customer. Just be there for the function that you're there to serve. That's one of the metrics. Then we deal with our quality metrics. We have a very robust quality program. We drive the business on quality. Availability is part and parcel to being in this business. It's the nature of the beast. But quality is huge. 30% of a portion of their review is based on their quality score, and it influences the behavior measurements of their scores. And so we do have a quality program that actually goes in, samples the work across a variety of functions, and that's even growing even still to this day. So quality is another portion of it. One of the struggles that every bill manager has to deal with is, how do I measure the volume in a billing unit when the work varies so greatly? And one of the things that we did was we called it the law of averages. And I have a great supervisor over in that area right now, because we're actually in the middle of changing their metrics based on her analysis. She's been able to identify the law of averages according to the work that's been sent, because we've done so much to take away the easy, quick kill work. And now what we've identified is groups of work. So there are certain types of work that center around commercial, there's certain types of work that center around residential, and they're cross-trained in all of them, but they don't get it all at the same time. And so the metrics are measured, that we measure that team with, are based on those law of averages. Those laws of averages are governed by the team average. And so how you perform within proximity to what the team is doing at the end of a week is important, because each week everybody gets a certain type of work, and each month they get a certain type of work. The week is for the agent. The month is for the supervisor. The week is so that the agent can gauge themselves, but at the month, the supervisor can say, you did well. You made up for whatever was lost. Let me see. I hope that helps. What was the 3,500 daily backlog to norm due? Or was it the peak? The question is, was the 3,500 daily backlog to norm prior to the change, or was it at the peak of the issue? Well, actually, that 3,500 daily backlog was at the peak of the issue, but it wasn't. It was the norm. The 3,500 backlog was just one of the symptoms. When we started digging in, we said, we actually asked the question, are you serious? This is normal? It was normal for that team to, and their term with us was, we're always behind. And that's a horrible way to come into work every single day. I saw the human perspective. From a human perspective, I couldn't imagine having anyone reporting to me with that kind of weight on their shoulder every time they come to work. I love coming to work and knowing at the end of the day I've accomplished something. But if you come to work saying I'm always behind, how do you ever leave thinking you've accomplished anything? And so that was the norm, but examining it, basically the discovery was at the peak of this issue. This is a real problem. We are 3,500 behind, but let me show you how that's affecting us. So let's forget about being behind. Here's how we're going to change it. And so specific to the process, the way that we addressed it was, in our system, all of your work gets queued, and any CRM system is going to have some methodology of saying, here are all the reads that failed the high-low parameter that you set for them based on their type, residential, commercial. So that you've got these parameters, that's that volume stream. Then the next thing you're going to have is, these are all the exceptions that are based on the dollar amount. When you put those reads against your bill component, here's the dollar amount that comes out, and based on this type of account or these types of characteristics in that account, this is going to fail for this reason. And then here's all the reads that came as a result of field action that took place and how that's impacting the bill. Well, this information doesn't match. And here's all the exceptions that are based on the actual field action that doesn't match within the system. So each of these create these queues. And within those queues, now mind you, we're reading 350,000 accounts every single month. So we're looking at 15,000 reads coming in every day, creating all of this information. And then we've also got about 5,000 or 6,000 field activities that are being processed every single week. So 400 to 500 a day we're seeing coming in, creating exceptions. But they're creating this work in queues. The thing that's interesting is your system is designed to also catch when things are out of sync with your bill window. So if something is not there, then the system is going to say, I've got to create an action item because you need to check into that, because I can't complete this bill without this action item. But all the elements that you need are in one of those queues. So instead of saying, okay, you guys, we know this is the one that's going to affect us the most, let's work everything in here, and then maybe tomorrow we'll get through the next one. Forget all that. Every single account you touch, work everything that's associated with it. Let's just start with the highest priority of work. But when you're in there, forget what's in the queue behind it. When you touch that account, complete everything. And it seems elementary, but just by changing that focus and saying, stop looking at the other queues, stop looking at what's next in line, fix everything on this account. What I was able to show them is if you just fix everything on the account, you prevent work from being created. You stop the processors from adding work to your queues. The other thing you're doing is you're obviously minimizing other queues at the same time. It doesn't work if one person does it. It only works when the entire team does it. And an interesting fact is we started with a billing team, my original team from billing, that we merged. When we merged the departments, I had 12 billing associates. At the end of the process that formed this team, I ended up with 4 billing associates. I sent 3 of them over to the rapid response team, and then we had 2 of them that actually are in a lead role, so we didn't have to really do much with them, but we did need to cross-train and get more work off their desk so that they could really be the support they were supposed to be, and 1 person got promoted. So you're looking at a reduction in the work group, not because we needed it, but it just wasn't necessary to try and keep piling that work on. Let's move the work where it belongs, move the bodies where they belong, and put them in the roles that they could function in the best. So I hope that helps to explain that backlog and that process around how we change that backlog and some of the dynamics around the operations. How old were the meters and batteries that were dying? Bless your heart. I've been here 20 years, so that's going to tell you a little bit about me too. So those were installed, I want to say, in 99, I want to say about 99. And so we were seeing the failure rates really pick up. 99, 2000, early 2000, we started seeing these get implemented. We were not privy to it, so I don't know all the details. It was just our field unit at that time had a leader who felt he knew most about the technology. And so he put those in the ground and told us that it had a 10-year life on the battery, but nobody had ever had them for 10 years. I think Albuquerque had them in a small area, and they only had them for a year. So I want to say that we were looking at about 15 years of devices in the ground that we started to see the mass failure rate. And so that would have represented then when the bulk got installed. So right at about 15 years. We had some that were 10 years, 12 years, but we were looking at about 15 years when we started to see the failures. The failures were not just batteries. The battery analysis helped because it helped to target the areas that we were dealing with, but the failures were the device themselves. The devices themselves just started to fail. And so it wasn't just a battery issue, it was a technology issue. It was just bad technology. And solutions that still, to this day, have eluded the vendor that created them, things that they couldn't get a solution on. The metric system is IEX. NICE purchased IEX, and so they call it NICE IEX or NICE Workforce, but NICE is the company that we have our quality system, and I'm answering a question. I'm sorry, I'm reading these, and I should be reading them out loud. What is the name of the metric system again? The metric system is IEX. It's now NICE IEX because NICE purchased IEX. So if you look them up online, you're going to see NICE and NICE IEX. What was the daily backlog as long as you have been using Oracle CCMB? Well, we don't have a daily backlog now. So now we generate approximately 1,100 to-dos that are worked between the 2 units. The back office is our account management group and our rapid response team. And on our rapid response team, they handle all of the meter read upload and processes that basically interface our field application, which is VarioNet, and interface ITRON. So any information that needs to come through those systems, they manage that, but they also do all of our high-low edits. And so there's no backlog. They do their share of the work out of that 1,100 to-dos, and then we do our share of the work. And then anything that they get from the high-low that they believe requires more analysis, they send to us. They are intended to be a rapid response view. And the goal is that they make sure that we are only uploading good reads into our billing system. And so when we get those reads and we're looking at our system, we're not working high-low edits. We're working the exceptions that could create a change to the bill that might impact the customer or create a question when they get their bill. And then how long have we been using CCMB? CCMB we purchased right after. We went live with PeopleSoft, I want to say 2006, And then Oracle announced, we went live in September. Oracle announced that they purchased it in November. Perfect timing. And so we made the decision right then and there, you know what, we're just going to go ahead and switch over. We're not going to stay on an unsupported product. And so 2 years later, we went live with CCNB. Both, I was on our department's lead on both of those implementations. The first one was a great implementation, PeopleSoft, but CCNB was terrific. We had an implementer on site, SPL. They kind of got absorbed into the company, and so that's how long we've been on. And how many high-low edits daily? We get approximately 500 to 600 high-low edits daily.
Penny, I'm showing we are now at the top of the hour, and I want to be respectful of your time and our attendees' time and conclude promptly. If your question was not answered, Denise Mullendorf with the CS Week office will forward the question to Penny, and we can get a follow-up answer for you at a later date. Also, I want to remind each and every one of you to watch for the Expanding Excellence Awards Program submissions. It's opening later this fall, so I'd like to encourage each and every one to put in a submission. And so as of now, this will now conclude our webinar. We want to thank each and every one that has attended, and we want to thank Penny Tootle for speaking to us today. This concludes our webinar.